Good evening, everyone. My name is Donn Morrill. I'm the Executive Director of the New York Technology Council, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's event on technology hiring and employment. I'd like to start with a few housekeeping items. I'd like to recognize our 2012 sponsors: EisnerAmper, Google, Power Space and Services, Ernst & Young, our newest sponsor, Verizon, Information Builders, TGP Associates, IBM, and Frankfurt Kernet. We appreciate the involvement of our sponsors, and without them, certainly none of the programs that you're able to enjoy throughout the year would be possible without them. So thanks to all our 2012 sponsors. Also want to give a special thanks tonight to EisnerAmper, who's hosting this event. They've been a great partner of ours over the past couple of years, and we appreciate the use of their wonderful space here. So thanks to EisnerAmper. What I'd like to do tonight is to start by allowing our panelists a few minutes to introduce themselves. You have their short bios in the program that was handed out tonight, but I figure each of them would be afforded the opportunity to introduce themselves, tell a little bit about the companies that they're working for, and kind of a high-level overview of their vision of the technology market today when it comes to hiring. Each of the panelists brings a pretty unique perspective. We've got a well-rounded panel when it comes to on the hiring side. We have a case study panelist who's on the ground trying to hire engineers and hire people in the technology space, and we have some alternative methods of hiring that I think bring a well-rounded perspective to this discussion. So let's start with Tom Silver. If you would take a few minutes and introduce yourself, please.
Great, thank you. Can you all hear me in the back? Yes? No? Great. So my name is Tom Silver. I look after North American operations for Dice Holdings with specific emphasis on Dice.com. I've been with the company for just about 11 years, and in those 11 years, certainly anyone who's been involved in technology, like I'm sure everyone in the room has been, you all know that it's been sort of the good, the bad, and the ugly. But the fact that we're all here and still standing, I think certainly is a tribute to everybody here, and I'm glad to be here and certainly look forward to the opportunity to speak with everyone for a few minutes tonight. Just a little bit about Dice.com. In a short sentence, it is a career website for technology professionals and employers and recruiters that are looking to hire them. We've been in business for about almost 21 years now. And just to give you a size of the breadth and the depth of Dice, is that better? Just to give you an idea of the breadth and the depth of Dice, we currently have about 85,000 job postings on the site. That's up about 15% versus where it was a year ago. And in terms of the magnitude of the audience, we have about 2 million or so technology professionals that come to the site each and every month. And if you consider that the Bureau of Labor Statistics quotes roughly 5 to 6 million or so tech professionals in the country, roughly a third of those people are coming to Dice each month just to get a sense as to what they can learn about what's happening in the labor markets, specifically about what's happening in the tech job market. So really where we sit right in the middle of roughly 9,000 or so customers, and as I said, roughly 2 million or so technology professionals that are looking to interact with those customers in a variety of different ways, whether it's to look at jobs, whether it's to get a sense for benchmarking their skill sets to see really if I'm going to go hit up my boss for a raise tomorrow, what's the market really look like and how much can I get paid for somebody who has a skill set that I have in my marketplace. We also get a pretty good sense as to what some of the trends are. So as I mentioned before, the job count is up about 15%. That's nationally. We can tell you certain markets which are above average, which are below average. We run salary surveys each and every year. We can tell you what's happening, what are some of the national average, for example, on salaries is about $81,000 a year. That's up a few points versus where it was last year. We can tell you which skills are hot, which ones are growing, which ones are not growing. So we really have a very interesting perspective in the marketplace because of really a unique, highly skilled professional community of technologists that comes to the site to really interact with either each other or employers and recruiters that are looking to interact with them. So that's really who we are. It's what we do. It's what the unique perspective that we bring. And I'm glad to be here and looking forward to sharing some comments with everybody over the course of the night tonight.
Thanks, Tom. Manish, if you go next, please.
My name is Manish Chowdhary. I'm the founder and CEO of GoECart. GoECart is a software as a service, web-based multi-channel retail management software. So we basically help merchants sell online and also operate their back office more efficiently. We're a small technology company headquartered in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So I'm on the floor, I'm the entrepreneur that's looking to hire the smart people. And the challenges that businesses face today, because being our size, I get personally involved in the recruitment, selection, and the retention process. So some of the challenges that we're facing is, even though there seems to be extremely high unemployment rate, but when you go to look for the really talented people, whether it's engineering, we're a Microsoft shop, so we pretty much all our technology is Microsoft, but having to find a senior software architect, because in a software as a service world, there's a great need for scalability. It's no longer sufficient to just be a software engineer anymore, because all the application and software is being designed, the new age software for the internet. So you have to have these new skills that you need to bring to the table. Or if it's a software sales executive, a lot of it is happening inside sales. So we hire all our salespeople, which are selling from inside. So they have to have not just the outgoing personality, but also they need to follow a process, and they need to. They also have a very strict numbers to deliver, and we found that to be a pretty tough position to fill. And also solution engineers or sales engineers. These are the people that work in tandem with the salespeople to provide demonstrations of the product, solve business problems. So people like us are using a lot more freelance resources if you can't find the right people, because we're not looking to compromise. We're not looking to, because even though we might be a smaller company, but we're still competing with the very large organizations, so we still need the same access to talent. And so we have to employ a lot more creative strategies and tactics to acquire and attract these people, because we can't compete on the benefit side, but we have other things that we want to offer. And just a little thing that I'd like to share, if there are any entrepreneurs in the room, it's not so much about the benefits of the salary. And if you're familiar with an author called Daniel Pink, you can Google him on YouTube, and you can find his very famous speech on the truth of motivation. What are the surprising truths that motivates people? And the three things that motivates most people are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is to live your life the way you want, the way to direct. Mastery is to be better and better at something that really matters. And purpose is to be part of something that's bigger than yourself. And we believe that if you at a small company can offer something like this an opportunity, you have an equal shot or better at attracting the same level of talent. So I look forward to sharing more ideas and learning here. Thank you.
Thanks, Manish. And Jay, please.
Sure. Jay Colan. I'm a career coach with Hecht Harrison. And speaking of scale, we have 300 offices around the world, but each office is like a very small unit, and we work closely with the people in the local job market. Most of you probably might know of us as in terms of our outplacement business, our career transition business. We help people find work after they've left the company. We also have a performance improvement business, which we started about 12 years ago, which is essentially executive coaching, where companies will bring us in to help leadership and staff develop their management and leadership skills. Every executive MBA candidate at Wharton has a Hecht coach. A couple of the banks in New York have their top 200 or 300. So it's mainly programmatic development, not remedial development. And so we're in different parts of the career life cycle. Most of my remarks today will be more, not as much about hiring as much as where the opportunities are from my vantage point of working with people. And I have pretty active interaction with some of the people I've worked with over the years. And if I can just talk about a few general business trends I see, and just some areas that I see now that I think are providing opportunities in IT. One is absolutely growth, and this is in sheer contrast to 2007 to 2009, when it was like survival. both for people and for companies. Companies are developing businesses, products, and services, and all the business models are changing around us. They're operating more globally with both customers and competitors in what used to be called emerging markets. There's a shorter turnaround time for developing new products and services. People are trying still, unfortunately, one of the legacies of 2007 and 2009 is people used to doing things with less, and they're continuing to do so. So they're continuing to cut costs of staff, real estate, travel, licenses, electric power. They're dealing with hacking, both political and criminal, measuring metrics becoming more important. They're dealing with retail and corporate customers who, through social media, can compare prices and quality. They're marketing and distributing products and services across a number of platforms, selling to an increasingly diverse population and managing, providing on-the-spot customer service through handheld devices, collaborating virtually, and a number of other things. Like there's companies are looking to develop data-driven decision-making culture, quicker results. We mentioned, as we talked before, about consumerization. There are people bringing their own devices to work. Increased use of interim staff, absolutely seen in the last 2 downturns when I've been doing this work. Geometric increase the amount of jobs that are done on a project basis. And those jobs can go on for months, and I'm not saying how they deal with the IRS on this, for years. And another trend in hiring I've seen in this downturn in the last 3 years, I've seen people go back to former companies. Companies bring people back on a project basis, many times through a third party and sometimes directly. And a few areas in IT that benefit from these business trends, and I'm sure this term will be used more than once, cloud, excuse me for using that term, data, analytics, business intelligence, and dashboards to come with them, social media, mobile, remote access, collaboration technologies, and there's still a number of situations where people are bringing legacy assets to digital and more flexible means of development, again, to coin a phrase, agile. And people are using the term innovation all over the place. I'm not sure they're always knowing what they're doing with it, but they're looking for it. And just a few industries in New York where there's some opportunities in this. One is healthcare IT. They seems to have a upside for a couple of years ahead of us, in spite of that article in the Times 2 weeks ago about the electrical medical records not bringing profits and adding costs. Ad serving technologies and media, which is sort of interesting because you think with everything going on in media, even print media companies are saying we're bringing in technology people to deliver across different platforms. Of course, the vulnerability in media is someone may, people try something, they don't like it, they throw it out, and those people are gone. And wealth management, and I just had a discussion with someone that's saying trends counter to this, but I would say that with demographics, people like me entering a certain point in life where they want to manage their financial resources differently, or at least that's growing. So, okay, that's it. Sorry to go on so much.
And cloud computing is a very real phenomenon. There's no need to apologize for using it unless you're talking to Larry else. And Scott, please.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Great. My name is Scott Sperling. I am the sales director for TriNet for New York and Connecticut. Just by a show of hands here, how many small, medium-sized business owners do we have out there? How many want to open up a small or medium-sized business? No one. Interesting. Someone in the back. Thanks. And the guy on the right. Well, let me tell you a little bit about TriNet. TriNet understands that for a small and medium-sized business, we play a huge role with our clients when it comes to attracting and retaining top talent for small and medium-sized organizations. That is our core niche that we work with, is small and medium-sized companies. So as a small company, you're always competing with the larger, more established organizations when it comes to recruiting top talent. So what that means to you is that you need to really ask yourself a couple of questions, because you're up against these companies all day long when you're looking for these individuals. You have to say to yourself, do you have the right tools and support to attract and retain these individuals? As a small company, do you have what it takes to keep these employees content, not only financially, but also with a competitive and comprehensive benefits package. And lastly, do you currently have the benchmarking, compensation studies, and industry expertise to draw these individuals to your organization? Because those larger organizations do. So if you have a pen, just jot down these numbers. And this is in technology alone. 83% of the CEOs surveyed by Pricewaterhouse, they plan to change their firm's talent management strategy over the next 12 months. 65% of those CEOs, they anticipate the main change to talent management will be using more non-financial rewards to motivate their staff. And lastly, 1%. What if you had one source to work with you to attract and retain top talent and help you compete with those larger organizations within your vertical or your industry? A little bit more on TriNet. Not only are we working with these small to medium-sized companies, we've been in business since 1988. We are the largest privately owned professional employer organization in the nation. And we help these small and medium-sized companies get those tools to help you retain and hire this top talent. For instance, how great would it be to work for a company that was able to provide cost-effective, comprehensive, Fortune 500 level benefit packages for your company, for the new employees that you might hire? What happens if you had a best HR, or should I say, human capital assessments guide to help you with your decisions, to help you with your roadmaps of your organization, for data, and also HR advisors to keep you compliant 100% of the time? Also, online compensation studies to make those fact-based hiring decisions. And lastly, benchmarking HR data to supply you with an insight into hiring trends to optimize your performance. What TriNet does is that we mitigate your risk as an employer when it comes to payroll and HR, while you provide cost-effective, top-notch, pre-tax Fortune 500 benefit programs to your employees. After, I guess, we go through our questions, feel free to ask me any questions about how a small and medium-sized company gets to achieve the look and feel of large organizations when they're looking to hire top talent and grow your organization.
Thanks, Scott. So I want to start out by setting a little bit of context for tonight's discussion. It's when you say it out loud, it really has this funny air to it, but we're in an era of 8.5%, 9% unemployment. Yet the overarching assumption of all our discussions, what I'm hearing from our member companies, is that they can't find enough employees. The unemployment rate in the technology space is between 3.5% and 4%, depending on who you ask. And so we're in an interesting scenario where there's a good portion of the workforce that can't find work, and yet there's this subsector of the economy that can't find the right employees. And so there's some type of mismatch there. And one of the things we're going to do tonight is try and figure out, how, we're not going to solve it tonight, but how can we address these concerns, and how can we do what's right for our companies and do what's right for the people in the workforce that might need to transition into the high technology space. So let's start with the obvious question. Tom, what are some of the skill sets that you're seeing that companies are looking for now when they're hiring in the tech space?
We look at really a couple of different things. Certainly we look at what's the most commonly sought after skills. And we also look at what are the fastest growing skills in terms of demand. And they're different. So in terms of what are the most commonly sought after skills, not surprisingly, it's in the areas of either programming. So somebody knows Java or somebody knows C or C++. It's someone who knows databases and is skilled at database management. It's probably the single most in-demand skill is database management. We also see project management, which is, again, one of our top 5 in-demand skills. Not only is project management one of the top 5 in demand, it's also one of the highest paid skills, with an average salary of over $104,000 across the country. So that's one group of skills, which is really almost in demand. Then the other area, which I think is interesting to look at, is what are the fastest growing skills? Skills that, if you were to look at DICE 3 or 4 years ago, weren't even on the map. You never even heard of them. And I think that addresses really one of the questions that you're asking, which is, why is it so hard to find people to meet that ever-changing need? That's because the needs of employers are changing so quickly. So if you look at what are some of the fastest growing skills, the ones that weren't even there a few years ago, not surprisingly, it's in the area of Android. It's in the area of iPhones. So if you know how to run those, if you know about cloud computing, again, those are 3 of the fastest growing skills that several years ago didn't even exist. So part of the challenge that employers are facing is the most in-demand skills as well as the fastest growing skills, and they're different, and they're changing literally every day. So that's what we're seeing right now.
Let me extend the question to Manish and Jay a little bit. Understanding that the core competencies, Java, PHP, Ruby, those kinds of things are very specialized. Is project management, and Manish, you mentioned sales and sales engineering support, are those transferable skills? Can somebody come out of a manufacturing environment, out of Detroit, out of Buffalo, and transfer project management and program management skills into a high-tech environment?
I think more than the skills, it's the cultural fit, which I think is a little bit harder to accomplish. Hard skills are generally easily transferable. However, somebody who's coming in from an assembly line sort of work in Detroit, where it's largely use of more mechanical skills rather than cognitive skills, it becomes much harder to make that transition from a large organization to a small company like ourselves, where you're wearing multiple hats. It's not just about doing one thing. So I find the skills are mostly transferable. However, the cultural fit is not as easy of a transition to make.
Jay?
Yeah, just other thoughts on that. And because so many people look for the PMP, or they look for the Prince 2, or they look for the certifications. And I think, I would say equally important, but very important, is your knowledge of the business. And whether you're a project manager or a BA, if I can put those in somewhat overlapping worlds sometimes, there's people want to know that you know the business, that you can speak to, business people and the technical people. So I think that even though I'm someone who many times when I'm talking to people is, yes, let's figure out how you can make this transition, there has to be something in common. And I think that straight certification, or that is not as transferable. At the same time, I think it is transferable across perhaps different technologies, or perhaps across different, like within financial services, people have done project management in one area and gone into another because they've known the product areas somewhat, whether it's fixed income or equities or media, they work with certain things on, rolling out, television production models and things like that. So I think it's almost more important that you know the business. And the cultural fit, I think that's key for all search. It's got to be a match.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Let's move on and talk a little bit about compensation and salary. And I'm going to get to the B word in a little while. I'll keep it secret as to what that is. But Tom, you want to talk a little bit what you're seeing in terms of trends in compensation?
Yeah, sure. So DICE runs a salary survey every year. This past year we had about 20,000 or so respondents from a variety of different tech functional areas, just to give us a sense as to really what is happening with respect to salaries. For the past couple of years, salaries are relatively flat at around $76,000, $77,000 a year. Not surprisingly, as market conditions and demand for tech workers started to pick up over the past 12 months, we started to see compensation for tech professionals start to improve, to the point where last year the average salary for technology professionals was around $81,000 a year. Some would say not bad, but for tech workers, quite frankly, they're never happy. That's never enough. So they're looking for compensation not only in terms of salary, but also in terms of other areas. So what employers are starting to do now is they're starting to not only rely on salaries, which are starting to go up, as I mentioned, but they're also using bonuses, and maybe that was the B word that you were talking about. And I think that certainly it's a bigger part of finance, obviously, but it's becoming increasingly important now for tech workers too, in terms of bonuses that they're looking for, cash bonuses. So back in the heyday, certainly stock options were pretty attractive. I think that's really something which is declining in terms of attractiveness, and instead, not surprisingly, tech pros want cash. So we're seeing the average value of bonuses go up, the use of bonuses go up, and employers are trying to manage their overall compensation costs not only with salary, but also use of a more controllable bonus, which allows them essentially to pay more for those that deserve and pay a little bit less for those that quite frankly don't. But overall compensation is going up.
So Scott and Manish, let's talk a little bit about non-cash the benefits and reasons for attracting employees. Scott, talk a little bit about some of the specifics of what you offer and why it's so attractive to small and mid-sized companies.
Yeah, sure. What's nice to have an offering is you're looking for an individual that's coming out of a larger company, you're looking for those types of executives. So you want to have the plans also, not only the salary, but also the benefit plans, that when they walk in day one, they're going to be able to choose a plan that's right for them. You want to give them a plethora of plans. You want to be able to offer them the Aflacs, the MetLifes, 401k, all the way down to just simple insurances, life insurance, short-term, long-term disability, because this is what they're used to getting. Salaries are great, but when they go home to their family, they want to be able to say, listen, I have a Fortune 500 benefit plan, same plan that I just walked out of the Facebooks, the Foursquares, and the Google. So you want to be able to offer that to them too, as well.
Manish, would you agree with that? And what are some of the other benefits that you guys consider?
Well, I think compensation for the overachievers only works up to a certain point. And in fact, there are behavioral psychologists that have done experiments, and once your basic needs are taken care of and you have a certain level that each position demands and your needs are being met, after that, they did these studies where they actually gave financial incentives to people for performing certain tasks. And what they found was after a certain level, when your basic needs were met, the larger performance incentives actually led to a poorer performance. It sounds counterintuitive, and I'm not dodging the question. I'll come back to that. But I think it's often a misconception that financial incentive is the one that's going to attract somebody from Google or Facebook to come work for you. I think so. Not really, because those people are looking for something beyond that. They're looking for purpose. They want to be associated with something. They want to create the next Facebook. That's why they're looking to join you. I think by giving clarity, by giving them a little bit more of an ownership, and ownership doesn't always have to come in form of stock ownership. It's about making them part of something, giving them the autonomy. I think that's something that smaller and mid-sized companies can offer, because financial incentives work great if you're looking for compliance. They don't work quite as well if you're looking for engagement. And engagement, you can't put a price on that. And so by showing them the vision and giving them clarity, and that's one thing larger companies, even in their press releases they write, they can't provide forward-looking guidance. So even internally, they tend to be closed-lipped, whereas you as a small and mid-sized company, you can talk a lot more. You can share those small accomplishments and make them aware of where you're going. That makes them a little bit part of a bigger picture, and I think that is what attracts a lot of overachievers to small and mid-sized companies.
Jay, are you finding that's what you're hearing from your clients as well?
Yeah, in fact, I was just talking to someone last week where when she said, I want to work that means something, I said, do you want to work at a nonprofit? No, I just want to make sure when I do something, the big company doesn't just throw it out after 2 years and say, we're going someplace else with things. So she wanted something that it's not just autonomy, but where it was important to the company, it actually delivers something for the company and was noticed. So the work should be of value. Yeah.
And just to add to that, I mean, even Google has that 20% of your work that you can allow work on any special projects, but 80% of those projects have been thrown out. Just imagine if you were one of those 80% of the people, how you're feeling. So even though the idea is great that you get the autonomy to do something, however, that idea can be shot down very easily and without ever making it to Larry Page's desk. So.
Yeah, just one other thing, and then I agree with what people are saying here. What we also hear, though, from our audience is that not only do they want to work on projects that are meaningful, but they also want to work on projects that allow them to work on cool stuff.
Yeah.
And they want to be able to make sure that their skills are continuing to grow, develop, and evolve. Because one of the biggest fears they have, which I think makes tech different than so many other industries, is this fear of obsolescence. And if you work on something that's now old, what happens next? So tech workers are always looking for the next thing, which certainly creates meaning and is strategically important for their organization. But they want to be working on whatever it is that nobody else is working on. So that way they're going to be in demand not only where they are, but also where they're going to go next.
So that's a great segue into my next question. I want to do a little bit of a comparison to a small, mid-sized company or a Web 2.0 company versus, say, a mainline Fortune 500 company. We talked about Google. You've got Foursquare. You've got Facebook coming into New York is going to be on a hiring spree. What does that mean for the IBMs of the world and the Johnson & Johnsons of the world and the Time Warners of the world? Tom, do you have any metrics that break down where the jobs are in the kind of that Web 2.0 / startup space versus the Fortune 500 space?
We don't track all of that. We do track some of the things, though, in terms of some of the activity that's happening here in the New York City area. So we looked at a small site called seedtable.com, and we found that over the past 12 months, there were actually 142 startups in the New York City area in the past 12 months, which is actually tied with Boston for the second most, right behind Silicon Valley. So we do have a sense as far as what's happening in New York City, based upon that information. What that means, though, to address your question, what that means, though, for some of the larger, more established companies, is they're going to have to not only continue to provide a work environment and the skills development opportunities that smaller, hip startups have, but also think about what it is that they offer that certainly a lot of people want, which is, for the most part, I think, perception anyway of job security, perception of a career path that's a little bit better defined, and an opportunity for them to grow and develop into areas of management that are a bit better defined, which would mean something for somebody, perhaps, which is a little bit different from some of the other organizations that aren't quite as well developed.
Jay, any insight into what your clients are seeing in the Fortune 500 space versus startups?
Sure, absolutely. So many people I work with want to get away from the larger companies, and sometimes it's hard. As you mentioned, this C-Table and PwC Money Tree is another site people go to. Sometimes it's hard to find those companies. Just how do you develop that list that I've been looking for? I wouldn't say looking for years, but over the last few years, I've been trying to find. Here's data. There's got to be, some aggregation of, which are the companies by geography and by funding that are developing things. So I think that would be great. So people are interested in that. I think people have a harder time finding that. I think one of the patterns I saw, especially in 2008, is that when the big companies were in big trouble, many people just circulated among the larger companies, or some circulated among the smaller companies, and a whole group, many people who were circulating among larger companies starting in 2008 started going to, okay, let me look at the smaller ones because the big ones are in trouble. So I think there's interest in both. There's been this sort of aphorism for years that most job creation in America is small to mid-sized companies. And I read something a year ago said that's not true. So I don't know if it's true or not, but there is work in there, and just the advice I give to people as they're looking, where do you find these? I say, if you have contacts in a larger company, go to your corporate development group, go to the investment bankers who cover that space. Because a lot of times the people in a large group that look to buy the M&A group in the large companies, they'll know which small companies they've looked at. It might be a way to see what are some good ones out there. Right. So there's interest.
So I want to touch on salary real quick one more time. So some of my readings and doing research for this discussion, it seems like the IT salaries are really going through the roof. I was actually reading the Dice.com blog over the past couple of days, and I've read about signing bonuses approaching $50,000. And Google and Facebook and Twitter all competing for employees, and we'll throw in, because we're in New York, we'll throw in Bloomberg, we'll still throw in Goldman Sachs, even though what's going on in the press nowadays. Is there a salary bubble in the IT space? Are we paying them too much? Is there too much venture capital coming into the market that's going to dry up in the next couple of years? Manish, what are your thoughts on salary levels right now as it pertains to the technology space?
I agree with you, Donn. I think they're extremely overpriced. It's really hard for a small company to compete because salary is a good cushion. Being all things being equal, that does not go in your small company favor. And clearly, all the numbers that you shared are indeed correct. And in fact, I hear of numbers from folks at Google where they're giving out millions of dollars of stock options to retain these people. I think everybody knew 2 years ago when Google gave a 10% blanket raise to every person in the company. I mean, only very few companies can match that. Generally, certain job functions like mobile is super hot, trying to find any mobile developers, social media, software architects, Ruby on Rail or PHP or big data analytics. That's generally speaking, there's clearly a 10, 15, 20% increase that I've seen in my universe over the last 2-3 years from 2008 leading up to 2012.
So I want to touch on another topic related to that. Another article and a trend that I've been reading about is technology training. The trend that we tend to see in small startups is that they need to move very quickly. The pace of innovation is moving very rapidly, and they don't have time to train people. They don't have time to bring on people who might have been a project manager at General Motors or might have been a COBOL programmer at IBM and bring them on board and train them. And the statement was almost that these hot startup technologies, whether it be tablet or Ruby or Python, they're almost like disposable skills in that they're going to use the skill sets that they can extract out of the university system for the next 5 to 10 years, and then they're going to move on to the next thing. Can anybody on the panel talk a little bit about technology training? Are people that are coming out of the 9% unemployment workforce, is the training available to them? Are they able to get the training? Or is it really just this really small core group of highly talented, highly specialized technologists that are going to be driving the market in the next couple of years?
Okay, just a thought on it is that I know people who've looked to develop their training on their own. It's not through companies. And I'm working with a good number of people in traditional media, people who've done like photos for newspapers, not exactly an area where there'll be a lot of work going on, and they're going to Noble Desktop and getting some of their skills and going out and doing stuff. And in fact, I met someone who also did some work similar to that, who is really, again, through networking. She knows somebody who got her a job doing some of the editing of the website for a television network, and before that she'd been doing print. So it's some combination of networking and training. People are doing it themselves. I hate to say that, but one of the things, as I was put out a question to one of my networks on what will draw people, as I think your theme of this, to a company, and one person very well said that it really depends on the culture. If it's a company that's very aggressive, it will attract people who want to learn, and will it offer, and so it should offer them actually for entry-level through mid-level people, they want to see what they'll be learning. So I think that actually having a plan for developing people can be a way to attract staff. Sure. Can be.
Manish?
I mean, I would almost argue that that's the single biggest skill that the people in the advanced economy bring to the table, is ability to learn. It's almost the ability, teaching somebody to fish versus feeding them. In fact, today, the single biggest thing I look for when I'm hiring people is ability to quickly learn something new. Because no matter what technology, what tool we use today, is going to become outdated and obsolete in 3-5 years. So a lot of the onus of learning and adapting is on the individual now, and those are the people that are able to make the transition. And Jay mentioned previously the business domain and business knowledge. So you may acquire the business domain and knowledge, but if you don't keep up with the technology, you get outdated even that way. So I think with the world of outsourcing and the world being flat, in the advanced economies, unless we learn how to constantly train and learn and pick up the new things quickly, those jobs are getting shipped offshore.
Okay. Scott, does TriNet do any management of, say, tuition reimbursement programs or training credits or anything like that? And are there any trends that you're seeing there?
No, we don't actually do that. The companies that we have on board might,
Okay.
But as a company, we don't.
Gotcha.
Yeah, what we hear is that training is definitely an issue, that employers are largely underdeveloped in their ability to provide training capabilities. They want people who have skills that literally fit like a glove in terms of what they're looking for. And for an employee that's in an organization, it's largely up to that employee to make sure that they themselves stay current, to your point. We find that there are other training and certifications that are more meaningful for people that want to make a transition, or if they're in between, certain certifications like project management professionals, Cisco Certified Network Associates, security. If you have security clearance, you're still pretty well off. So we'll hold that one to the side because that really is a very specific skill area for someone that has active federal government security clearance. But there are certain types of in-demand, we'll call it, certifications that will help someone who might be in between if they want to jump back in. They're still going to be at a disadvantage versus getting into an organization where someone's got that proven skill. But without it, you're at an even bigger disadvantage. So that's what we're hearing in the market right now.
And I'm going to chime in here for a second. You know, in part of my travels to Washington, D.C. over the past few weeks, one of the really hot issues down in Washington is the 1 million plus troops that are going to be coming back from overseas in the next 5 years. Some of them have technology skills and some of them don't. And the Obama administration is keen on retraining these returning troops, injecting them into the workforce, and the high-tech workforce is a specific target for them. And to that end, we've been working with one of our sister organizations, CompTIA, to develop a Troops to Tech Careers program. And so in the coming months, look for that coming out of us. We're going to be launching regional websites, and we're going to be looking for commitments from local companies to hire and train returning troops. A million plus tech, somewhat savvy employees coming into the marketplace in the next 5 years. There's going to be tax credits and training incentives to help reintegrate those people into the workforce. I'd like to turn real quick to the topic of retention and turnover. You know, the salaries rising as fast as they are, and the skills changing as quickly as they are. Tom, I don't know if you have this, but you know, what percent of the people that are on Dice.com have jobs? What percent are unemployed and looking for jobs? Are there, you know, returning people that come there every month? You know, is there anything that you can share with us from that perspective?
Yeah, between 2/3 and 3/4 of the people that are on Dice.com already are employed. That number changes a little bit depending upon the market conditions, but I think roughly 70% or so of the people that are on Dice already have a job. So I think to your point, turnover is starting to pick up. You know, for a while there was concern about, well, if I jump, there's this whole feeling of if something goes bad, then if I'm the last one in, I'm the first one out. And that was definitely impacting people who otherwise might have been interested in moving around to really slow them down. We're starting to hear, though, and this is more anecdotal than data-driven, that tech pros are starting to feel a bit better about themselves, and they're starting to reach out a little bit more, and the turnover is starting to pick up. Again, we look at the job count on Dice right now, and it's up about 14% versus where it was a year ago, and that's a pretty good indication of the fact that tech pros are starting to move around a little bit. Retention becomes a big issue, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people who can speak about that, but there are a variety of things that employers can do. They're not necessarily comp-based, and I heard some of those before, that I think will work for tech professionals and will also work in terms of meeting some of the budgetary constraints that employers are facing today.
Manish, what are you seeing in terms of turnover? Are you able to retain employees? And if so, what are some of the tactics that you're using to do that?
I think retention is going to become a bigger issue in 2012, as Tom mentioned. I think it's just human nature to look outside when things appear to be greener. And I think we're beginning to see that. What are some of the things companies can do is, as Jay mentioned, the notion or the fear of obsolescence. I think allowing them to work on newer, cooler technology, I think that's one thing that the employees can appreciate, and they like that because they feel that they're getting to learn something new, and they don't have to reach out or go elsewhere in order to acquire those skills. Even though training is something that's often overlooked in small organizations, but even allocating, it could be something as simple as giving them their own quota or a allowance to find training material and do it on their own, a little bit of the company time. I think also being more transparent. I think that's one thing that smaller organizations like ourselves, we tend to do, is we tend to be extremely transparent as to where we're going, whereas that is something that may not be available in larger organizations, mergers, acquisitions, and that generally results in a lot of jobs either being shuffled or and where you have no fault of your own, you don't know what the future holds. So those are some things that we are doing as a small company.
Okay. Scott, let's go, Scott. What are you seeing in terms of turnover and the tactics that your clients are using to keep employees?
Yeah, actually, we were just with the CEO a couple of weeks ago, and within TriNet has 6,000 companies on the TriNet model, and we're actually seeing a lot of hiring. Within our companies alone, within the 6,000 companies, we've seen that just through TriNet, because we have a recruitment division, that they've hired 8,000 new employees, which is great. And you mentioned retention. Some other good avenues that are good for the employees, not only with the benefits and non-financial stuff, it's also employee development. I think someone touched on that. Through us, we also have 400 different programs where you can help your managers strive to be better managers. You can help your salespeople strive to be better salespeople. And I don't think that, when you go to a new company, that they necessarily get that right up front. So you could tell your employees, this is what we're currently giving you, and you have the possibility to move up within the ranks here, and we're going to give you the tools to do it.
Jay, what are your clients telling you? Are they mostly currently employed, or are they looking for employment?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
okay. What I was going to say is that just on the soft side of things, I think we've all seen those statistics of why people leave companies, and many times it's because they weren't engaged or their manager didn't get their value. And that's a very subjective thing for both parties, I would say. And I'm not sure, there are all these engagement programs, but I think it's partly getting the value of what they do, seeing the training, and even if people, things get better, people felt like for years that, I stuck to my job because it's so scary out there, I'm not sure I wanted to take a chance on something else and want to be last in. At the same time, I think not everybody's going to want to move. So that even if there is maybe one move people make, I'm not sure they're going to make multiple moves. So I think it's still about engaging people in the organization.
Go ahead.
I'll add one more thing. This is something that we do at our company. We use a lot of behavioral tools and techniques that is very, it works really well because everyone has a different motivation. Not everybody has the same set of requirements. And so we use tools. There are two tools we use. One is Predictive Index. It's a tool that allows us to learn more about each person's personality and their communication style. And there's another one which is called SCARF, which is, again, status, certainty, autonomy, I don't recall what the other two, relatedness, and and so on. So when you understand what each person's inner motivation are, in a smaller organization, you can actually make an effort to work with them on those particular items that they care most about. Some people care more about certainty, whereas other people care about relatedness. And going back to Jay's point that, I do believe Jack Welch's people leave people, people don't leave companies. And I think by having the manager be in tune with their subordinates and peers, I think we can cut down retention quite a bit.
We run surveys all the time. We're not nearly as scientific as what you just described. And we just ask people. And not surprisingly, a high percentage of tech workers live in big cities. Their commutes are awful. So we ask people, are you interested in telecommuting, and would you be willing to trade off compensation for that? A third of the people said they would take up to a 10% pay cut if they could telecommute. It's easy. It saves money, and it keeps employees very, very happy. As I said, it's not nearly as scientific as yours, but you give people the chance, and they'll say, yeah, I'll give some money back if you don't make me take that awful commute. If you live in New York City, you live in Washington, D.C., you live in San Francisco, it's awful for some people. They don't want to do it.
You just stole my next question.
I didn't know that.
So let me turn to Scott. Do you do any remote workforce management? I'm not talking about outsourcing or overseas workforces, but is anybody seeing this distributed workforce phenomena that Tom just described?
Yeah, we have a lot of companies on board that a lot of their employees do work remotely. And it does save time, it saves money. We're seeing that quite often. There's a lot of tech companies, they're located here in New York, and they have one employee in Colorado, one employee in California, one employee here. But these tech guys, they don't have to leave. They're just either writing code or they're doing whatever they do. And for us, it makes it easy on our side. Now those companies don't have to worry about all those payroll, tax, federal, state regulations in any of those states. We take care of that for them. They don't have to worry about procuring and acquiring health benefits in any of those states. We take care of that for them as well. So we make it pretty easy for them to have employees everywhere, whether they're working in the office or working remotely.
And so you see a lot of clients taking advantage of that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Just a quick anecdote. About 3 years ago, I was working with somebody in a really tough job market, and he took a job, and after a few months, he went someplace else. He said, I'm used to working from home on Fridays, and how come they're not letting me do it? So I think to the point of that convenience, and absolutely, I see a lot of that. In fact, I've met people who work from home for the last 5 years. And I was almost worried about their communication skills, how they can get out and network. Obviously, they're communicating, from home at work. But and so I see many people that's how they work. Yeah.
I want to ask one more specific question on a tactic that back in the good old days of 1999, 2000 was used to lure employees. You heard a lot less about this 3% unemployment rate in the technology space in '99, and I think the problem is more acute today than it was back then. Perhaps some people would argue with me. And one of the differences that I see is that back in 1999, anybody who was selling a $100 bill for $90 could go public and offer stock options and run off their stock options. Nowadays, it seems there's a lot less activity in the IPO market, a lot less activity in the capital markets, and so perhaps stock options aren't quite the incentive they used to be in the good old days. Manish, are you seeing that at all, or can anybody comment on that, perhaps?
Well, the IPO window has certainly elongated for most technology companies. Most technology companies are not looking IPO as an exit. However, M&A is a very, very vibrant activity in the small, medium-sized tech companies. So even though it's the stocks are not as liquid, but once you get to a magnitude of something like a Facebook, there are these secondary markets like secondmarket.com and so on that I think both employers and employees have come to terms that the get rich quick is no longer a potential, is not as viable as it used to be, and you have to put in your 5-7 years before you can look for a real exit. So I think the market levels itself, there are still great promising opportunities for people, and people still take those on. There's certainly a lot more cash to go around, especially if you're VC funded. So a lot of the companies are giving more cash compensation as opposed to stock, because it's and also the management of stock compensation is under a lot of scrutiny. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a combination. On the lower end, it's certainly the stock compensation. What I hear from my peers has come down, but on the executive side, that's still a big attractive carrot. And the window has elongated.
So what I'd like to do here is move into some closing remarks, and then we'll open it up to the audience. And I'm going to start with a hypothetical question for everybody except Manish. If you were in the position of running a small or mid-sized technology company here in New York, and you had hiring problems such as we discussed today, what are your closing words of wisdom and your tactics for making sure that you can grow your company? And for Manish, that's a very real question. Tom?
Are you kidding me?
Closing words. Let's just call it closing words.
That's too easy for me. No, but in all honesty, I think companies really have to understand what it is they offer to organizations, to people. If you're a small to mid-size, what is your environment? Why should you be attractive? And make sure you position yourselves and get out and sell your company. Make sure you get out and brand your company. There are a lot of ways to do that. This is a great job site for tech professionals that I know of. But I think it's most important for an organization to really understand what it is its value, and why should an employee come to work there. I think that's really the most important thing, because once a company really defines who it is and what they're looking for, the rest of it becomes a lot easier. Then it's just a question of how do you go about branding yourself, pay attention to that, and again, execute that really well.
And just, I'm not sure I can say anything better than that, because I think also to the point that Tom brought earlier, what is the technology that would appeal to people? What would they get exposure to? What would they learn? And subsets of what he was saying. What is it like to work there? Why be here? What can you get out of this? Sometimes I've shown some clients I had to pick the right ones. There's a agency in Dumbo called Huge, and sometimes I've just shown people that site, say, hey, and it had to be the right person that would like it. So to some degree, even though it's a fabulous, very interesting, dynamic, playful site, it doesn't work for most people. So to some degree, they've limited themselves too. So it's interesting trying to make it appealing to the right people.
Closing remarks, Dan?
Yeah.
I'm going to concur with Tom on this one as well. But, besides all that good stuff, you also want to be able to, have in your back pocket the stuff that employees are looking for. Those top-notch employees that are looking for, that you're able to compete with the larger, more established firms. If you're going after, a candidate who wants to work for a larger firm, have reasons and have the resources that's going to have them sway their decision to work for a 5, 10, 15, 20-person company.
All right, so I'm going to play Phil Donahue here and walk up and down. For those of you that remember.
I'll take an 8.
One comment before, two comments before question. Number one, I agree with most of what you guys said, but I think you would never overpay for a superstar. The company goes out and hires somebody for $10 or $20 million a year. The difference is incidental. It goes including technology. You look at the technology people. The guy who's running pennies now thinks about it. Number two is, for those who want to, there's a company we work with that actually, I'm sure Tom knows it, that actually tracks every single web placement in the United States with 3,500 job sites, and you can break that in any which way you want to. Mm-hmm. And so that gives you a very quick perspective. My question is, how do you brand and engage, consultant employee branding, how do you brand and engage a company that nobody's ever heard of, which has no marketing budget, in an environment which is very crowded? When you go to DICE with 85,000 jobs, you have 14 jobs, and all right, you get paid for a premium position, and take Tom to lunch a couple of times. But you're really not going to, how do you brand a small company, especially when, you're going after hard to fill positions?
Small company right here.
Well, I will disagree slightly with Scott on the previous comment that I don't think as a small company I want to change your mind to work from a large company to a small company. That's not what I'm in the business of. If you are intrinsically attracted, my job is to be authentic. And I'm not going to sway you. It's a decision that you have to make if that's what you choose to do. Because otherwise I'm going to get a partial engagement, I'm going to get something that's short-lived, and it's a compromise that you're making temporarily. Going back to authentic branding is different. I think I just heard a couple of days ago, what is brand? And what does branding mean? And somebody said, branding is something that people speak about you after you've left the room. That's the way they describe you. And branding is about being absolutely authentic. And you should not try and attract a lot of people. You should just try and attract the few people that you really care about and what you really want, and be okay to turn off a lot of the other people. That's one thing that we entrepreneurs, most of us play the safe game, and that's the most riskiest game to play, because in today's world it's all about inbound, meaning the people that want to work for us. For example, at GoECart, one of the things we say, you will come to work for us because you will learn at 3 times the speed of any other company. But we will make you work hard. You're going to work harder than any other company you worked in the past, but you're going to learn at 3 times. So if professional development is important to you, you would be aligned with us. And we're looking for smart people. We're looking for people who are on their feet. So you can create a YouTube video of your vision in 30 seconds. It doesn't even have to be extremely professionally done, and put that right on your careers page and let the people see it. 80% will be turned off. The 20% that really want and they want to engage with you, those are the people you want to talk with anyways.
So I'm going to use moderator's prerogative and ask one more question. We forgot to mention the S word tonight, and that's social media. Tom, are you seeing social media as a competitor of yours? Are there things that you're doing in the social media space? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Many of our clients use social media for their recruitment purposes, and that works well for them. There are differences that a site like Dice offers for a variety of reasons, where employers would use both social media as well as a more, at this point, a conventional career site like ours. So they're both. We use social media to help get our brand out. It's a very effective tool. There's audiences that are there, and they can find it. What's that?
I read your blog this week.
There you go. So really, to get back to your question, the question about how do you get your brand out, there are a variety of different free channels that one can use. Blogs, whatnot. Really, I would recommend understanding your specific niche in the marketplace as a company. What expertise do you offer, and then to go really deep with getting that message out online, whether it's through blogs, whether it's through white papers, whether it's through industry events. That's one way to do it. The second thing to do is I would be very, very clear with all my employees about, because they can be your best spokespeople, and they can spread word of mouth better than anyone else can. Be very clear with them as far as what is the value of working for the organization, and what do they bring to it, and make sure that they can be evangelists for the organization when they go out. And that's where I start. It costs you nothing. It's a little bit of work, but you could start there. With respect to social media, I think employers are still trying to figure their way out with it. There's a lot of activity, but I'm not sure yet how many hires are really there, and maybe somebody else can speak to that. We've heard that there's a lot of experimentation, and they're not quite, employers for the most part aren't really quite sure yet how they want to use social media, but they all know they want to use it. For larger employers, there's some considerations. There are a lot of EEOC requirements that need to get met, and not all social sites have all of that figured out yet. I'm sorry?
and sorry, there's a company called Morrill out of San Francisco that's recently done a study of the effectiveness of social media for recruitment, and they do that pretty annually. It's pretty accurate. I mean,
And what do they say?
Money spent on budget versus the number of hires is less than 4% of hires come from social media. It's now running about 14-15%.
Right. So that's what I said. I don't know if everybody could hear that or not, but the comment was a company called Morrill does a study in terms of sourcing of hiring, and so I get this right, but it said that companies are spending roughly 14% of their budget, but that's only contributing about 4% of their hires. So we're hearing some of that. I have to sit here and say that certainly there's a competitive aspect of it, and I want to make sure that I represent it fairly.
Of course.
But we've heard similar from employers that are trying it out, and they haven't all yet figured out exactly the best way to use it. So employers are trying a lot of different things.
Just pick up, last May I went to this great event. It was during the TV Upfront season. It was called the Social Media Upfront. And all these social media people were so happy to be in a room and face each other and talk with each other. And so I think there's value to, as you talked about, the branding of the company through the goodwill of the employees that can help set a tone that, hey, this is a great place to work, or I'm not hearing bad things, hearing good things about the company. Yet I think that if you're in a specialized area, there are so many meetups in New York. There's so many events where, years ago I worked with someone who was a web designer. He wanted to become a web analyst, and he joined a web analyst meetup, and that's how he got into it. So I think it's really being around the people. So on the other side of things, as you're recruiting, see people in that area, talk to them. You're in an informal situation like this. It's a good way of vetting them.
Other questions?
Hi, it's probably a two-part question. One is really talking about finding these skills. So I'm interested in the panel's view on bringing foreigners into the country to fill these skill gaps. That's number one. And then maybe you can address the other part, which is what should we be doing with colleges? Are colleges looking and preparing people for these types of jobs? Are they forecasting out 10, 20 years what our needs are? And part of that example is if you go back and look at the 80s, there were a lot of computer science grads that came out of the 80s. But I don't think we've seen it since the last 2 decades. I guess I'm a lot older than I thought. The last 3 decades, we've seen a bit of a tail off there. So I'd be interested in the panel's viewpoint on those two aspects.
Bringing in foreigners, I'll address that first. Are you speaking of those with respect, for example, to H-1B visas?
Sure. Whatever it takes to bring the right talent to this country.
Yeah,
we're talking about making this country the right place to be.
Yeah. So certainly from my perspective, if an organization is willing to go through the effort that it takes to sponsor someone because they cannot find those skills in the U.S., and they really can't, which I think is part of the H-1B visa process, they should do it.
Should we raise the numbers? Should the government raise the numbers?
So the question in the back is, should we raise the numbers? And that's beyond me. I'm going to maybe someone else will want to take a shot at that one. It's hard for me to really go down there. Just the other part of the question is, you're right as far as colleges not doing a good enough job in preparing it and making that skill, preparing graduates for the required skills that they need. That gap is growing. The number of math and science graduates is not keeping up with demand domestically. Maybe increasing the H-1Bs is a way to do it. I'd recommend a variety of things to do, whether it's increasing H-1Bs, whether it's also increasing skills and whatnot in colleges to meet the needs.
I think the H-1B question is probably more some formula that someone has and how many openings, so I think it's almost... I'm not sure.
I think one of the issues with H-1B is that it's a very transitory process. H-1B, I believe, is 3 years, and then you either have to get it renewed or apply for citizenship or go home. One of the things that's been before Congress for the past year or so is something called the Staple Act, which would, when you have people from overseas coming into the United States and earning advanced degrees in certain STEM disciplines, essentially you would staple an extended work visa to their diploma, which would allow them to stay in the United States for 5 or 7 years and use the skills that they Napster here in the States as opposed to taking them back to their home country. So the problem with that, though, is that that will probably end up being part of a blanket immigration reform, and we all know where that is right now. It's been out in and out of Congress for the past year or so, and there's been no progress on that.
There's one side point, and that is 76% of all people in foreign countries who get a PhD in the United States leave.
That's right, that's right. And one of the problems is the immigration status associated with that.
But if I could also mention, you talk about should colleges do a better job. Maybe there are other vendors than colleges we should look at. I don't know. It's more a question I would open up. Maybe there's some other organizations that provide more targeted training that have people with more specific skills.
Yeah, I mean, there absolutely are. There's, I'll go back to our training partner, CompTIA. They provide what's called A+ certification. So if you want to, let's say you're coming back from the military overseas and you don't necessarily have a college degree in computer science or information technology, you can get Cisco certified, you can get Java certified, you can get network security certified, and that makes you a marketable person in the workforce. So there are definitely alternatives to the traditional university route. It's just a matter of putting the companies and the people together. Other questions?
Hi. So hearing the conversation, it sounds like there are, from a small and medium enterprises perspective, two big supply trends and one big demand trend. The demand trend seems to be a desire to capitalize on social media trends and really be that company which is, a Gen 2.0 company, if you will. And on the supply side, employees increasingly wanting to make sure that their workplace is a pretty flexible one, A, and B, there's an opportunity to work on those cool technologies which there's a demand for. So given these trends, A, are these trends accurate? Are there any other big trends we're missing? Second, what's the one big implication for a small or medium enterprise in technology given these trends? Should you change the way your workforce is created, make it more nimble, flexible working arrangements? What's the one big change?
I'll let you take that one.
Well, the trends are absolutely real. I think one trend that we don't talk, which I think is bigger than social, is mobile. Mobile is here. In fact, and Gartner predicts by 2014 there'll be more mobile computers than there are desktop. And the trends, and you look at yourself, how often you're checking your email, doing everything that you want to do on your mobile devices, iPad. So trend is absolutely real. These are not fads. Social media, I think Tom earlier mentioned people are not really sure, and I heard some people say social media is like teenage sex. Everybody's doing it, not everybody knows how to do it. So it's so I think the trends are absolutely real, but people are just flocking. Every website has a Facebook badge and a Twitter badge, and whether that has been updated in the last 2, 3, 4 months, God knows. But everybody has it. Everybody, Coca-Cola does an ad. It's facebook.com/Coke. So some of it is going to shake out. I don't think the small and medium enterprises have to jump on a bandwagon to take a urgent leap. I think mobile, to me, is real. If you had limited resources, I would allocate that first towards mobile and wait for the social world to clear out a little bit before, as opposed to feeling left out. That's my personal opinion. And there are many other tools and technologies. I think big data. Data is a big, that's, somebody mentioned IBM. I think IBM is doing some really cool stuff in those other emerging technologies, distributed computing. So, which small companies really don't have the scale or the resources to even attack those large problems, which can only be really tackled by a lot of resources. So I don't think we need to make a major shift, but 2012 is the year of mobile. So if you want to do one thing, you probably want to invest in a mobile site or look towards that.
I'm a marketing director in the media technology space, and I just completed my digital media marketing certification. But as somebody who's looking, is it more important for me to have my MBA or to have a more of a PMP and additional certifications? Are there certain things that you look for in tech marketing that are important?
Whenever I talk to anyone thinking about even taking a weekend course at the Learning Annex, I say, talk to people who do the work that you want to do and ask them, I'm thinking about this, what do you think? What will make me more marketable? Speak to a couple of people. I don't know, it depends on what you want to do. I mean, MBA may open up certain things, there may be certain connections and the like. There'll be some analytical processes around, whatever you're doing, whether it's in finance or marketing, that will be, pretty helpful. At the same time, some of these certifications on how you get work done, like PMP, might be useful. What do you want to do next?
Well, my company was just bought by one in California.
What do you want to do next?
Be a marketing director in the media tech space.
Okay, talk to people who do that work and ask them.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I may add, I think I would. The marketing world is left brain, right brain combining.
Yeah.
There's a huge need for analytics.
Right.
There is no digital marketing today without measurement.
Yep.
So, to me, that's a really great skill to have, and I would really encourage you to look into that, because whether analytics, measurement, reporting, optimization, because it's a combination of left brain, right brain, and any kind of digital marketing without measurement, you can't justify ROI.
Hi, Robert Gretzky with GlobeNet. It's been mentioned about colleges, what a college is doing, but I think it's really, before that, it's what's happening coming out of high school now. There's not enough students getting involved in science, technology, engineering, math. Kids are, we hear nothing but kids are technology sound. They're doing things, they're involved, but they don't know anything about technology and business, where it goes. We need to engage more businesses with both colleges and students into real-world kind of applications. Those areas that I'm focusing on things with. And probably out of the panel, is there anything you guys are doing to reach out into high school? I know you do outreach into colleges, getting people involved to start looking on the boards. But are you guys doing anything for reaching further?
High schools, for the most part, not really. DICE really tends to focus on probably someone that's a little bit more senior than someone that's in high school. That said, we brand ourselves at events like South by Southwest, for example, which just happened a couple of weeks ago, and we had a pretty big presence there. So, and I don't know if there's high school kids that are going there, but certainly there are some activities. There's some who are probably college age that are there, and we're starting to reach out a little bit lower in terms of age demographic. So it's not only there, it's also we take a little more active role with gamers. And we're trying to brand ourselves and to get known, if you want to call it that, in the gaming world, which tends to reach down a little bit younger also. I think you're right, though, which is, high school kids, for the most part, they're technology users, but they don't really understand it very well. But I think that's a pretty good starting place.
There's a big miss that people think everybody's technology sounds, but they're not. They just know how to do the things they do.
They know how to play games, or they know how to use their iPads or whatever.
And it's even that the parents need to be educated.
Right.
Because the parents are the ones that push kids into the right, into different areas.
Yeah.
Everything is technology now.
Correct. It all is.
Every single industry is technology.
Yeah.
If I could take a counter view to what might be the sense of the room, is sometimes I think if you specifically study a technology, let's say in high school or college, you've heard all this stuff. By the time you get out, the stuff has changed. So I think it's the thinking process. As you said, the business and technology piece is very interesting. And I have run programs in high schools and junior high schools and with community groups and business groups, and it's not so easy to get and I've worked with public and private schools doing this, and I'm not sure the return of that. I think it's pretty interesting to do, but it might be better at that later stage when they are more devoted to something, then you can say this is how you use it.
I think it's really a whole cycle. It's about bringing together high schools, colleges, and businesses. Putting together a career fit. It's getting everybody together where everybody's doing a little bit here and there, but it's trying to encompass it to have the direction of, it's going to take a couple of years to get kids in and start filling these jobs of the future. And the businesses have to start pushing down through the colleges, and in turn the colleges are going to be pushing down to the high school and bring them all together.
Right. So let's give a big round of applause to our panelists, Manish, that.